Check, check, mic check. Check, check, mic check. Welcome to Podcast Envy. I'm your podcast boss, Andrea Klunder, and I am keeping today's intro short and sweet because I want to get straight to my fabulous guest, Joan Sotkin. Joan is the producer and host of The Prosperity Show, a podcast exploring the inner path to business and financial success, personal fulfillment, and peace of mind. But more importantly, Joan has been podcasting a long time. And in fact, she is one of the very first handful of podcasters who I listened to who inspired me to ever even launch The Creative Imposter, turn it into a business, launch Podcast Envy, and become your podcast boss. And Joan is not kidding about the mindset stuff, y'all. I don't know about you, but this shelter-in-place marathon has got my physical activity levels way down and my body feeling ancient. So just today, inspired by Joan's unwillingness to live like a, quote, sick older person, end quote, regardless of her numerical age, I got myself up and moving with a more intense workout than, like, ever, and a bike ride. And let me tell you, I feel better. Links to The Prosperity Show, Joan's coaching services, and free online resources will be in the show notes for this episode at thecreativeimposter.com/pod envy 064. Now, I have to tell you, Joan is one of those rare podcast hosts who is a master conversationalist, no matter whether she's in the role of host or guest. And though this conversation very organically winds its way through many, many topics, we always bring it back around to podcasting. So I encourage you to settle in and stick around for the whole ride. Joan Sotkin, thank you so much for joining me for Podcast Envy.
It's my pleasure.
So you are tuning in from Santa Fe, New Mexico. Give us a little picture. What does Santa Fe look like right now?
Well, Santa Fe, if you've never been here, is a marvelous city. We have no tall buildings. It's very high up at 7,000 feet. It's very dry, so we don't have any humidity. So the dogs don't have fleas because it's high and dry.
Oh.
And there's only 70,000 people in the city. So the density is very low. And it's a wonderful place to be. And I'm really glad I got here.
Yeah. And I've been to Santa Fe a number of times recently because I've actually done some work with the Santa Fe Opera for their podcasts.
All right.
Yeah. And I've been talking to some different podcasters in different cities for this series about pandemic podcasting pivots, is what I'm calling it. How is Santa Fe in terms of the pandemic and the shelter-in-place orders? What does it seem like right now in this moment?
Okay. We have a fabulous governor who was the Secretary of Health before she became the governor.
Oh.
And she's very smart. She's even being considered as a possible vice president with Biden. And so she got on it pretty quickly. So most of our deaths have been in senior long-term living, the senior living centers.
Yeah.
And in McKinley County, in Santa Fe County, we have a very low rate. So I feel very safe when I go out for my walk. There's a park right by my house where I can walk for 1.5 miles to 2 miles, and I don't run into that many people. It's a very low density place. So most of us are behaving ourselves and are doing what we're supposed to do, and we're doing fine.
That's really good to hear. I was mentioning to you that I've been listening to your show for a long time, at least 5 years. It's probably one of the first 10 podcasts I ever listened to.
Wow.
And it was at a time, actually, when I was going through huge financial difficulty. I had previously owned a yoga studio in Chicago. That was my first business. And it didn't pan out financially for me. And I ended up having to close that. I filed bankruptcy, and I discovered you in the midst of all of that financial turmoil. And you were one of the first financial prosperity money people that I had heard who helped me realize that money is more than just an objective thing, that it's very subjective, that it's very tied into thoughts and emotions and feelings, more so than just numbers.
Yes. And to me, that's what people don't look at, particularly money coaches and everything is all about, keeping track of your money and everything else, which I talk about because you have to take care of it if you want to make more of it. But I realized that everything that we create in our lives is a result of decisions that we make. And in each of those decisions is an emotional component. So a lot of the prosperity teachers talk about thoughts and beliefs, which are also part of it. I don't think you can separate it. I think it all happens within a nanosecond.
Sure.
But for me, the emotions are the creative force behind your life stories. And if you don't understand your emotions, then you're not going to get it. Fortunately, I've been talking like this for 40 years, and now there's emotional intelligence. I'm reading this book called Permission to Feel, which is helping some of my male clients. And I think you have to get in touch with the emotions because your individual combination of emotions are what define you and how you express yourself in the world. And so if you're not able to get in touch with it, you don't have to have a wonderful vocabulary to start. You just have to notice whether you feel contracted or expanded when something's happened. And if it's contracted, that's not comfortable. So you need to know where that came from. And so I have a system for figuring those things out.
And I love that your show sort of combines the financial side, the prosperity side, with mindset, with health and wellness. And it's sort of an interesting cocktail that you put together.
Well, it's holistic. It's all of us.
Yes.
I even help people travel into other dimensions because that's part of us too. When I talk to people like Lynn McTaggart, who wrote the book, The Field, or some of them that are coming up soon about the more metaphysical part of us. I've been into metaphysics for over 50 years. And so it's very much a part of my world. So I've learned to language things so I don't sound like a woo-woo, new agey weirdo, even though I am. I've just learned how to speak like a straight person. And I think all of us have that within us. And so my goal is to be able to present it in such a way that business people can relate to it and use the principles to improve their lives in a way that they feel more fulfilled and authentic. Because there's so much of people trying to be like other people, and that just doesn't work.
And I know that you have also talked about your life and your work in terms of themes. Like I remember one was the courage to be you.
Yeah, I did that for a long time, and then I lost track of what I was doing. I'm not very good at following rules, even my own. So what I'm doing now, and I haven't turned it into a theme, is I really want to focus on the inner path to prosperity. Mm-hmm. What is it internally about us and who we are that creates our life outcomes? And to me, that's more important than anything else. The people I'm working with now when I do my one-to-one stuff is mostly successful business people who have reached the point where they're saying, what's next? Because they've followed all the rules and they made a lot of money and it still feels empty inside. And, people who are over-earners who say, well, if I only have $1 more million, I can be happy. And I say, if you're not happy with what you have, you're not going to be happy with $1 more million. And so it has nothing to do with money. And that's one of the things I say a lot, is it's never about money. If you think you have a money problem, it's never about money. So what is it about? And what I try to help people do through the podcast and the other work that I do is to find out what it is about and how, this is the important thing, how your family of origin issues, what you learned as a child, are affecting your decisions today. I mean, I work with people who are in their 60s and 70s, as well as younger people. And it's amazing how you were treated at age 2 is affecting your finances.
Wow.
Because it's the emotions. So if you had any kind of abuse or neglect, you're going to be pissed off. And that's going to be acted out in many different ways. And even if you had aware parents, which there aren't that many, parents are trying to do the best for their child by their standards. They don't realize that the kid needs to explore who he or she is and not follow all the rules in order to be the best producer on the block. So a lot of people have to get over what they think was a problem with their parents because their parents just didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And when you realize that your parents are just wounded children, then you can deal with it in a whole different way.
Yeah. I've noticed that more and more as I get older, I can see the patterns and the choices and the decisions of my parents more clearly. And I've also realized I never used to think about the fact that my parents grew up in a different time. I mean, obviously, numerically, they grew up in a different time than I did, but really thinking about how their lives were different, how their circumstances were different, how their options were different, and how that may have informed their choices, which then, trickle down to my feelings and my thoughts.
And what if you inherit your parents' feelings? So for women, now I was born in 1940. That was a long time ago. My mother was born in 1913. Okay.
Yeah.
Women were not exactly elevated, right?
Right.
When my mother decided to take a boat to Israel in 1934 to stay with some relatives, that was really avant-garde.
Mm-hmm.
She had gone to college when she was 15 and at 17 decided there was more to life than what she was learning. So when I was growing up, they just expected me to get married and have children, and that would be my life. Although they insisted that I finish college. So I got married twice and realized that that wasn't my idea of having a good time. And so I knew I had to find another pathway in life. And at one point, I just gave everything I owned away and went wandering for quite a few years because I needed to see life from a different point of view.
Yeah. And as someone who has that ability to see life from a different point of view, I have this feeling about you, Joan. So you've said that you don't like to follow rules. You have this avant-garde perspective where, you started podcasting before podcasting was like the hot thing to do, right? Most people didn't even know what it was at that time. And you like to see things from a more holistic perspective. What are you noticing with the coronavirus, the pandemic, whether this be in response to the work you're doing with clients, whether this be through your podcast listener community? What are you noticing more holistically about this time that you think is maybe a different viewpoint than what people are focusing on in the news and the media?
Okay, so I hear a lot about the anxiety.
Yeah.
And I haven't had one moment of anxiety or worry during this time because I've worked for years to get to the point. My main goal was to not let money determine how I feel and to not worry about anything. And last August, I reached this point of stillness where I had $200 left, had no idea where customers were coming, where clients were coming from. And I just started giggling because I saw the game. And I realized that, by the time you're my age, life doesn't seem so hard because you've figured out hacks for a lot of the stuff. And I don't have kids. I just have this dog to worry about. And so I realized that I had finally reached this point. And since that day in August, I haven't had a moment's worry. And there was another element. In 1976, which was 4 years after I had started meditating, I had this message that said, we're going into a period of great chaos. Many people will leave the planet. And the chaos in the Middle East will get so bad that people will say, how could a benevolent God allow this to happen? And people were being trained to be points of lights in the midst of the chaos. Well, I knew I was one of those points of lights, and I just had to follow instructions because that's what was going to happen. That was 1976. So I've been waiting for the chaos. When the AIDS thing came, I thought, oh, here's the chaos. Not. When we went into Iraq, I thought, here's the chaos. Not. We are on the outer edge of the chaos now. It's going to get worse before it gets better. So I'm excited because what I see, okay, so remember I mentioned that point of stillness. If you imagine a globe turning in a clockwise direction and it turns and changes to a counterclockwise direction, as it makes that change, there's a moment of stillness where nothing is happening. That's where the planet is now. We're in this moment of stillness. Everybody's talking about the new normal, which no one can anticipate. But there are so many things that are going to have to change because this thing's not going away by the end of the year, whether people want it to or not. And once it goes away, we have to go through all the thing with people not wanting the vaccine and all that's happening. This could be a 2, and I've heard experts say this could be a 2 or 3 year process. So our lives are going to change, and people hate change.
Yeah.
It's chaos.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the chaos. I've taught myself to love change, to realize that it's the most beautiful thing because we get to reinvent ourselves one day at a time. Recently, I went with one of my clients up in his airplane. Now, I had gotten my pilot's license 30 years ago, and I haven't been flying in a long time. So here we are in this Piper Comanche at 12,500 feet, which just released me from anything that might have been left over. And I was just laughing the whole time. There's a picture I put up on Facebook where he took a picture of the 3 of us that were in the plane. I'm just laughing. And now I just have this memory of these New Mexico mountains and the green valleys that I saw. And how can you worry when that's what's real?
Yeah.
So with my clients, that very quickly, they are able to see the main childhood issues that are affecting their feelings. Now, most people who come to me are aware that they want to get in touch with their feelings. It's not everybody standing online waiting to make more money.
Yeah.
It's the people who have made money and are saying, what else is there? There's got to be something more than this because I can't just do the same thing for the rest of my life. And so once you, and with I have a group called the Intention Plus Action Coaching Group, which is very inexpensive. Anybody can join. And the people in the group, within short period of time, get to the place where they're not worried about what's going on. They begin to see their situation from a different point of view. And to me, when you learn to accept what is and you learn to be satisfied, it's amazing to me how many people are never satisfied because they're afraid if I'm satisfied, I'll never have more. And the dopamine in our brain always wants more.
Yeah.
So you have to learn how to train your brain and realize that because your emotions are the creative force behind your life stories, if satisfaction is one of your major emotions, then you're going to keep creating situations that satisfy you. And you get rid of all that anxiety that's going on inside and that need to push, and I got to do more and more and more. No, let go and let it happen. Let it evolve rather than making it happen.
I'm just like, okay, that's it. That's perfect. It's Podcast Angel time, that divine time midway through your episode listening experience where I get to share something amazing with you and invite you to come along. podcasting is growing so much right now as a platform, as a mode of creative self-expression that shifts culture and builds community. If this is interesting to you, or if you've been thinking about a podcast for a while, maybe it's time to get a little outside perspective on that idea from a trusted pair of ears. That's me. I'm offering Launch Your Podcast, my popular class that's normally in person in Chicago, online via Zoom as an interactive opportunity to learn all about launching your show, July 9th. Tickets are $50, but if you act fast, by July 2nd, you can grab one of my free spots, only available through July 2nd, so don't wait. And then on July 14th, the first ever Podcast Envy office hours with your podcast boss, that's right, that's me, will be a mastermind discussion on how to define success for your show. This is one of the biggest mistakes that I see new podcasters making, is not having a clear plan of how exactly they will know when their show is working for them, and getting caught up in like numbers and metrics and downloads and sponsors. There are better ways to go about this, and I want to help. This is an opportunity to dive deep into helping your show get you exactly where you want to be. Launch Your Podcast July 9th is just for newbies, and office hours on July 14th is for you wherever you are on your podcasting journey, from just thinking about it to trying to figure out what's next for your show. Details for both Launch Your Podcast and office hours are in the show notes for this episode at thecreativeimposter.com/podenvy064, linked in the episode description in your app.
As I said, I have the advantage of age, and I'm going to do a podcast episode on what I see about the different decades. A 30-year-old is different from a 40-year-old, a 50-year-old, a 60-year-old. People think when they get to mid-50s that it's all over. You're just halfway done. Yeah. All you've done for the first 50 years is find out what you're not. Now you have to find out what you are. And there's no good or bad. You've never done anything wrong. You've just made decisions that may not have worked out right. But we live in this dualistic world. So you have to make what people call mistakes. You have to go down the wrong path in order to say, oh, there's got to be something else. If you didn't make so-called mistakes, you wouldn't be looking for who you are.
Yeah.
And I'm discovering that I haven't discovered me until I'm in my late 70s. Wow. Now, I don't want you to have to wait that long to be happy with your life. So I'm going to try to help you understand how to be satisfied with where you are today.
And is that how you see your podcast, as a platform for amplifying that message so that you can be that point of light for more people?
Absolutely. I don't do a whole lot of selling on my podcast. I mention the group once in a while when I remember to mention the group. The podcast is for me to express myself. Mm-hmm. I am a very verbal person. I used to get punished for talking too much. They didn't know I was practicing my craft.
Right, exactly.
I was the only one of the top 10 who didn't make the Honor Society in high school because all my grades were like 95 with an unsatisfactory in effort. Because I talk too much. So I decided at some point I was going to make my living talking. And you can make decisions like that and take a chance. So for me, the podcast is on a personal level, my means of expression. And look at all the wonderful people I get to meet. Yeah. I mean, I sit there in my little room with a microphone and my dog, and I get to talk to pretty much who I want to talk to. Yeah. And they call me. All these PR people are sending me their people. And I get to say, no, that's not right for my show. Yep. So, I mean, to me, this is the perfect life. And people who do resonate with me, it might take them months to say, I'm going to call her. And most people who finally call me, it takes them months because you have to be willing to do the work. And if you're serious about learning how to be satisfied and to experience peace of mind and to make more money, then I'm the person. But if you just want an easy, quick and easy thing, you're not going to get it. I mean, you're going to pay thousands of dollars for all these programs and that are going to teach you how to make $10,000 in 3 months. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Because people don't realize that in order to change your life, you have to change.
Yep.
Your life is not going to change so that you can change. You have to change so that your life can change, because your life is just an extension of what's going on inside of you. It's simple, but it ain't easy.
It is not easy.
But once you realize that part of the journey is changing your relationship with time, then it can perhaps become a little easier. People are in such a hurry. One of the first things I do with my clients is tell them never to go through a yellow light when they're driving. In other words, you see the yellow light, right? And you put your foot on the gas. No, you're not allowed to do that anymore. Because then you're going to be ahead of your life. In other words, if you're in a hurry, then you're missing your now. My first spiritual teacher said life is a series of nows.
Yeah.
And if you're always in the future, you're missing your life today. So the idea, I mean, all the meditators now that meditation is popular, they're calling it mindfulness.
Another thing you did before your time.
1972, Swami Parampathy taught me how to meditate. And you learn how to just be present.
Yeah.
So it was interesting when we came down from the flight the other day, the pilot said to me, "What are you going to do this afternoon?" I said, "I have no idea. I'll have to wait to see what happens." I mean, it doesn't require a whole lot of planning. So when the coronavirus, back to your story, when that came, I had already been spending a long time learning how to just wait till I felt the urge, the intuition to go do something. So the first couple of weeks, I just kind of crutzed around and, played with the computer a little bit. And one day I stood there and I said, okay, what am I supposed to do now? And I realized, even though I don't have a crowded space that I live in, that it was time to really get rid of anything I wouldn't take with me if I were moving. Mm-hmm. And I had shelves in my office that had been built 20 years ago. And who needs shelves anymore? Everything's in the box in the computer. Right? So I had the guy who built them come and take them down and make more room in my office. I just had my rugs cleaned today because the room that I do my podcast in, which has rugs and baffles and the sound is a little different. It's actually drying now, which is why I'm not in that room right now. And it's like I'm getting rid of all this stuff, all my past, all the things I saved from my mother who died. I don't need the candlesticks anymore. I don't need the Rosenthal china coffee pot. I remember I went for some reason, I took the service for 12 Rosenthal china and it just sat there for a really long time. And I went to the used place here, the consignment store, and I said, I've got service for 12 Rosenthal china. And he said to me, honey, this is cactus country. No one uses Rosenthal china here. And it wound up at Goodwill. So now it's, a matter of what do I not want to take with me from my past into my future? So I've got this room that all it has in it now is the table that I sit at when I do my podcast. And I have no idea what that room is going to be. I have to wait. It's gone through many iterations.
Yeah. And
I've learned to wait. It's a skill that people have never learned. When I was on my journey, there was I would every once in a while, I would wind up at my parents' house. They were living at Lake Hopatcong, right on the lake in New Jersey. And I was guided for almost a month to sit in a chair watching the lake every day till 8 o'clock when I could meditate. So I could get up to use the bathroom and to eat, but not very often. And I knew I was learning how to wait. I had to listen to what was going on in my head. And in order to stop the so-called negative thinking, you got to listen to what you're thinking. And you got to say, that's not what I want to be thinking. I want to do something else. So learning to wait. After that, when someone would say to me, well, that'll take an extra day or two. Fine, no problem. Yeah, I mean, to me, an extra day or two is easy. Mm-hmm. An extra 10 months might be a little more difficult. Mm-hmm. But I think that everything happens at the right moment. We were planning this flight. We decided to do it months ago, and we had to wait for the wind to be right and the weather to be right. And it was the perfect day. I mean, it couldn't have been more perfect. So if you're willing to wait, what you need will show up if you're not afraid and you're not in a hurry. The two things that keep people from getting what's really in tune with who they really are. Because if you're trying to be like Warren Buffett, you can't be. He's Warren Buffett. You know? Whoever you want to be, people say, well, I want to be like her. You don't have to go through all the garbage that they're going through. People think, well, people who have money are really happy. No, they're not. They're just like you. They just have more details to take care of. They live in a big mansion. Look at all the details that you have to take care of that big mansion. I love that the younger people are starting to get away from things, and they're more interested in experiences than things. That, to me, is the way to live a richer life, because just going after money is a pretty empty goal.
Yeah.
Because, okay, so you got all this money. Now what do you want? And, oh, well, I want more money. I feel sorry for Jeff Bezos because he's so busy trying to maintain his position as the richest man in the world that he's missing the empathy he could feel for all his workers. And he could take one of his billions, and he's got lots of them, and make all those people more comfortable. What good is it to have all that money? His wife left him. What good is all that money if you can't feel connected to the rest of the world? To me, that is what we all really strive for, is to feel connected, because what we didn't get as children very often is the bonding that we needed, or to feel connected on a really authentic level to other people without having to put up that wall that says, well, I'm afraid you're not going to like me.
Yeah.
Because you have to connect to yourself. And it hasn't been easy being Joan Sotkin. This has not been an easy assignment. And I've gotten to the point where I really like me. Yeah, I'm a little weird, and people don't always understand what I'm talking about, but I'm having a good time.
Yeah. There's something that you said a moment ago. It's important to be present and to be in the now and not be getting ahead of your life and like rushing forward. And then right after that, you had talked about in the early weeks of the coronavirus stay at home, you started removing things from your home and letting go of objects and being in the past. And I'm wondering if there's an opportunity in this time that you see. It's both an opportunity to be very present with what is in your space, but it also can be very confronting for people to be in their present moment, surrounded by their space, and they can't leave. And
well, it's the time to get to know yourself. What are you feeling? What are you feeling? And the thing is, whatever you're feeling today, it's not the first time you felt it.
Ooh, yeah.
If you're feeling trapped, which is a major feeling people get from childhood, when they started telling people what they saw when they were 2 and no one believed what they were seeing, or you were being abused. Trapped is a main feeling that people have. So the system that I use to say, what are you feeling? Now, you may not be aware of anything more than the fact that you feel contracted, which is what you're describing. When people feel, oh, what am I going to do? And how am I going to make any money? And okay. So you stop and you take a breath and you say, what am I feeling and where am I feeling it? Am I feeling it in my body? Am I feeling it in my gut? When did you feel that before? Because this is not the first time you've been feeling that. And the idea is to stay with that. When did I feel that before? Until you start remembering back as a child, all those times when you felt contracted and put upon, and there was any kind of abuse where you wanted to go hide in your room, and now you're hiding in your room and you don't want to be there. Okay, so you're now 2 steps into a process of discovering who you are. And then you say, okay, I'm feeling trapped. What would I rather be feeling? And so you might say, well, I want to feel free. Do you know how to feel that? Because you probably don't. Because trapped is your habit. Remember, I said there's nothing wrong with you. Nothing wrong with you that needs fixing. You just have habits that may not be working for you. And trapped is a habitual feeling. So you have to, this is all about brain science. I'm not making this up, okay? You have to train your brain to have new responses to familiar stimuli. So you have to recognize when you're having that old, ooh, 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 and you have to say, what would I rather be feeling? Now, when people say, I'd rather be feeling, and let's go back to satisfaction. When they say, I've never been satisfied. Well, do you know how to feel satisfied? And 9 out of 10 people will say no. I've never felt satisfied. Okay, do you feel satisfied when there's a sunset? Do you feel, there's usually one small place that we can find that is satisfying. So when you recognize that you're feeling not satisfied and you're saying to yourself, oh, this just isn't right, and you're doing all that fetching about what's going on, you take a deep breath and you imagine that one little thing that satisfied you. Ooh. And you're telling your brain, okay, here's what we want to feel instead. And you have to do that over and over and over again. Because your brain, if you're in your early 20s, it's a whole lot easier than when you're in your 30s or 40s. And so you have to convince your brain that it's not dangerous to change. Remember, your brain is wired to keep you safe. You've got this thing called the amygdala that is supposed to warn you when something's not safe.
Yeah.
And the thing it hates the most is uncertainty. And what are we living through now?
Uncertainty.
Uncertainty. And uncertainty is a moment of change. There are no saber-toothed tigers. We're not going to get eaten on a day-to-day basis. You don't have to worry about that. So if you're worried about running out of money, there's a good chance you will. Because what amazes me about these bread lines, when you see the pictures on TV of the people waiting for the food from the food banks, and I've talked to some people in my podcast about this. What I see is people haven't learned how to imagine options. We are not going back to what we had before. And quite frankly, what we had before was not really terrific. We were all pushing towards this goal of more money and more things and comparing ourselves to other and taking things personally. Do we want to go back to that? So what people aren't seeing are the options. The people who want you to vote for them are not going to let you starve to death. Okay? So why don't you just wait and see what they come up with? But people can't wait because the kids are hungry. But there's this thing. Are you familiar with the concept of synchronicity?
Yeah.
Okay. So synchronicity happens. You need something and it shows up. It's the most amazing thing. On a simple level, last year at the first day of winter, it was really cold and I was wearing a new jacket and my nose started running. And I thought, oh, I need a tissue. And there were none in the pocket. And so I walked 20 feet ahead and there's this napkin, perfectly clean napkin, sitting on the ground. Could I have asked for anything? You know, it wasn't a tissue, it was a napkin, but I'll take that, right? But the thing that stops synchronicity is fear. So if you're spending time getting rid of those contracting emotions, they're not bad. People talk about negative emotions. They're just emotions. If you teach yourself to be in this more expanded space, which eliminates the fear by its nature, because you can't be expanding while you're afraid.
Yeah.
And that's when these weird things show up. You know, like I'm sure you've had that many times in your life where someone calls and you wonder how they knew you were supposed to talk to them. And well, what if your whole life was like that? And that's what I've decided I want my life to be. Because that works really well for me and it saves a lot of time because I'm not going after all the things I don't need. And so what I think the secret is just to keep meeting new people. You know, keep meeting people. And now on Zoom, I mean, I get to do that every day on my Zoom calls with people around the world. I now have this whole network of people I talk to on a regular basis, sitting here in my room in Santa Fe.
I've heard you say so many times you don't need more money, you need more people.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. So this time, if there is a benevolent intelligence that's guiding us, is saying, sit still and get in touch with yourself and get in touch with your uncomfortable emotions so you can create new ones. This whole thing is an opportunity. Yes, many people are, remember, I learned in 1976, many people will leave the planet. That's a very good euphemism. But, you know, I almost died a number of times and I was sick for a really long time, but I decided not to do that anymore. And so I haven't had sugar since 1973.
Yeah.
And I dare you to try that, right?
I'm not sure I could.
People say, I can't give up my chocolate. You know? I was a chocoholic. Tell me, absolutely. And I walk every day and I meditate every day and I don't overeat and I breathe, do deep breathing every day. And so I follow all the rules and surprise, I'm going to be 80 years old and I'm healthier than people half my age. And you can see that I have a little more energy than I've never had a flu shot because it's for the elderly and I don't consider myself elderly. So even aging is just a habit. You know, yeah, your body doesn't, you know, your cells don't last as long and things don't work as well, but you get over it, you know, and instead of going, oh my God, I'm getting old, there's this thing that men go through at age 60 where they think they're just done, you know, and they have to get.
Is that the sports car time?
I know someone who bought a Corvette, yes. And it's an attitude, you know, and you can stay young as long as you want, as long as you're willing to develop the habits of a young person. You know, I've watched young people move and I would notice how my body wasn't moving the same way. So that's what I would try to copy. You know, okay, now I'm not going to look like I'm 15 years old,
right.
but
Joan, have you joined TikTok yet?
Yeah, no. No, I got enough with LinkedIn and Facebook. Thank you.
Okay.
And I think I'm doing pretty well technology-wise. People are hiring me to run Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
It's like I'm the oldest one in the group, and I'm the techie.
Yep.
You know, I just had a conversation with someone today who has to run a Zoom meeting and he needed some advice, and he's going to be working with more mature people who are just so afraid of technology. And what's to be afraid of? It makes your life so much easier, and you can choose what you want to use and don't want to use. TikTok is not on my list.
Mine either, to be honest.
Nor Snapchat or WhatsApp or WhatsApp, whatever that is. Yeah, right. So I'm aware of things. I don't have to participate in everything.
And so what advice do you have, Joan, for a younger podcaster or a newer podcaster who wants to use their show and their community to grow a resource that's as helpful and as supportive as the one that you've been creating all this time for their community, for their listeners, for their audience? What's your best advice for a newer podcaster?
Don't try to be like anyone else. I mean, that's really important. When Entrepreneur on Fire was popular. Everybody wanted to be, I don't even remember
John Lee
his name.
Dumas.
John Lee Dumas, yes. And I was on with John Lee Dumas, and he asked everybody the same questions. And to me, that was, people will send me their bio and their book and questions to ask, and I never use them. Have a conversation. If you have a podcast, then you should like to talk to people.
Yeah.
That to me is prerequisite. And so talk to people. And what it's going to do for you is to allow you to be more spontaneous in your whole life. I don't worry about running out of things to say because I've been talking for almost 80 years.
Yeah.
I'm sure when I was born and the doctor slapped me, I did 5 minutes. You know? If you're podcasting, then talk and ask people about them. It's not, and forget about, to me, it's forget about selling and making money from your podcast. That to me affects the quality of a podcast.
Yeah.
Well, we got to take a break for a commercial. No, these are podcasts. This is not a radio show.
Right.
And have faith that if people hear what you have to say and they really like what you're offering, that you'll get ideas for making money. Now, for some people, that's doing commercials. I just don't like to go there. One of the reasons I listen to podcasts is so I can not get the commercials. I'm very good at tuning out commercials.
Yes.
And the ones that get me most are the drug commercials. Everybody in those commercials with a serious disease is young, handsome or pretty, always happy. There's a child, a dog, and...
Sounds like you could have a new career producing drug commercials.
Yeah. It's crazy what people are falling for. Let's get this disease. It sounds like such a good thing to have. Yeah. So I don't like commercials. I'll tell you what I got to offer, but I don't do affiliate marketing, and I just charge well for what I do, except for my group, the Intention Plus Action group. It's like $50 a month, and I don't care if there are only 10 people in it.
Yeah.
I don't worry about not having enough. And that's where most people are. I'm not going to have enough time. I'm not going to have enough money. I'm not going to have enough food. I'm not going to get all the clothes I want. I'm not going to get the house that I want. I'm not going to get what I want. And all of that is because you didn't get your needs met when you were a child. So you're always in that longing space. Oh, I wish they would hug me. I wish they would touch me. I wish they would stop yelling at me. So people are looking in the wrong place for satisfaction, and they're not going to find it if it's external.
Joan, what else do you think that Podcast Envy listeners need to hear right now, or that we should know or consider or think about for the coming weeks ahead?
Okay, you're not in the wrong place right now. Everything is perfect for you to grow and become who you're becoming. Everything you've gone through in your life and everything you're going through is your opportunity to grow into this peaceful person. You don't have to live like the Dalai Lama. in order to be peaceful. You can be peaceful in the world by learning about who you are and giving yourself a chance to express yourself. Let your podcast be that vehicle for self-expression, and don't worry what other people think. When I first started podcasting, I was afraid that anyone would find out how old I was, because everybody was 25, you know. And now I realize it's one of my assets. The thing you're most afraid of telling the world about is your asset, is your strength. You know, if you have shame about your past, well, then deal with the shame, because that has nothing to do with your real self. So I know that it seems, what I talk about seems like another world to some people. And that's why I can't do an elevator pitch, because in 15 seconds, I can't explain Joan Sotkin and what she's doing. It's absolutely, I can't do it in an hour, let alone 15 seconds. Right, so let yourself grow and evolve. You'll get there, you know, and it's never over. It's not over till it's over. And that's true. So don't be, I love it when people say to me, well, I'm so afraid that I'm not going to accomplish anything. You're only 50. You got 30 more years, 40 more years, 50 more years. If you'll stop eating sugar. You don't need the inflammation, right? So take care of yourself. Love yourself. Take care of yourself. Love your money. Take care of your money. But don't keep craving more. Ask yourself, what am I really craving? Am I craving connection and touch? Money's not going to fix it. People are.
Podcast Envy is produced by your podcast boss, Andrea Klunder. That's me. The Podcast Envy theme music is by Valentin Sosnitsky, courtesy of the Free Sound Project at freesound.org, and our podcast Angel music is by Benjamin Mastropolito, also on freesound.org as Lemon Cream. All music is licensed under the Creative Commons. Our episodes are mixed by Edwin Ruiz, and hey, if you want your show to sound as good as ours, hire us. Put the magic audio mojo of the Creative Imposter Studios to work for you. Thanks so much for listening, and here's to making your podcast the envy of everyone else.